Mini camp in Ashburn today. The Commanders are on the field. Noah Brown has been carted off. We are trying to get details on exactly what went down, but apparently, according to Nikki Javala of the Washington Post, he threw his helmet in frustration and then hopped on a cart after being helped off the field with a limp and was carted back to the locker room. Practice then ended a little bit early, and the media is discussing things now with players and coaches as they come off the field. So we've been taking a look at the wide receiver room and how things could shake out here, depending on what's going on with Noah Brown. But we got a question at the end of the segment. We'll get back to the phones in just a moment. You can call us at 800-636-1067, but I wanted to address this. A caller suggested that depending on, how serious the Noah Brown injury is, it could affect the Terry McLaurin discussions, meaning that he now can get more money or he has more leverage. I guess that makes decent sense. It's certainly not going to hurt his leverage. I just don't think the money changes at all, to be honest with you, with something like this. Maybe if it was Debo who was out for an extended period of time or someone with a much higher ceiling than, say, Noah Brown, I guess you could say it's possible. Or honestly, even if it was a different position but an important player like Ertz or a running back or whatever, where the offensive ceiling changes considerably today, which I don't think happens even if Noah Brown's out for a bunch of games, then maybe McLaurin can make the case like, the crown just got heavier, man. I need to do even more. I view it as the market is pretty set. Like we saw the DK Metcalf contract. That's basically what it's going to end up being. Either you want to pay that or you don't, but that's where it is. McLaurin's going to want a little more than that, and the Commanders are going to want to pay him a little less than that. But it's going to be within $1 million, $1.5 million, something like that, one way or the other from there. So I just don't think the market changes. We've got all the comps in the neighborhood. The houses have been sold. So if you're basically saying like someone just punched a hole in the wall in the basement and now it changes, what I don't think it really does.
I'm struggling to come up with a good analogy for it. I'll do my best. So imagine Laramie Tunsil was an incumbent here at left tackle, and they drafted Brandon Coleman to one day be the heir apparent and apprentice to take over at left tackle, right after a year or 2 years or whatever. And Laramie Tunsil showed up with his hand out because he was in the last year of his deal. And then his future replacement got hurt. Then I would think Tunsil gets to go, okay, now you guys really need me because your backup plan is gone, right? That's not the case here. There's no number one waiting in the wings. It's not like they drafted Jalen Lane to be the heir apparent to Terry McLaurin. Maybe it turns out to be one day, God willing. But you know what I mean? It's not as if they had somebody apples to apples go, as soon as Terry McLaurin goes down or is gone, I got someone else that's going to get 125 targets. They don't. They've got Luke McCaffrey. They've got Jalen Lane. They've got, name that fill-in. So I don't see it exactly as one-to-one, but I also don't think Terry McLaurin's value went down today, right? I mean, again, who knows what the extent of the injuries with Brown, but you need to make sure that everything is done. And maybe by virtue of that, you could be a bit more hardline and not have to acquiesce as much if you're McLaurin's side. I don't know.
Let's go to Jamal, who's in Northeast DC right now, chiming in on Grant and Danny. What's up, Jamal? How are you?
Hey, what's going on, Grant? Danny, thanks for taking my call.
Got it, buddy.
I personally, prior to the injury, I felt like McLaurin should have been a top priority for a couple reasons. For one, let's just look at his production. He's done nothing but that since he's been here, regardless of who's been throwing him the ball too. I mean, we finally got Jedi 5, so that takes care of that. But prior to, it was a musical chairs of quarterbacks in here, and he showed up and showed out. He never spoke ill of the team. He's a captain. He wears the C, so clearly the team voted him as the captain and feels he's a leader. And not only that, he does everything right. And to me, you pay this man just to send a president to the rest of the players in the team, because if I'm on the team and I'm seeing you lollygag with McLaurin, a guy who does it all right, then what's the point of me doing everything correctly if I'm seeing you drag your feet on the guy who does everything correctly? So they just need to hurry up and pay him before this creates a bigger issue in the locker room, in my opinion. Thank you for taking my call.
Well, let me ask you this real quick, Jamal. Oh, he's gone. Everything you just said, we agree with. That was yesterday's topic, if I'm being honest, right? Should they pay him? When do they pay him? How do they pay him? We've talked about it. And it wasn't just yesterday. We've talked about it for a couple of weeks. It's a no-brainer. You got to take care of him. He is Mr. Commander. He's Lieutenant Commander. The question right now is not should they pay him. We're talking about in real time, depending on what happens with Noah Brown here, if it changes anything about the ongoing dialogue. The speculation from a caller is, well, now he can get more money. I'm pushing back on that a little bit, saying the market's the market. Where are you at on my analogy of like The houses got sold. We've talked to the real estate agent.
Because another house of a different type got sold doesn't change anything.
Well, I think it's even less than that. I think it's like while we were moving out, something on the floor got scratched. Like that doesn't mean a whole lot. The number's the number. That kind of stuff comes and goes. You could sign a Noah Brown tomorrow if you wanted to. And it might not be a guy that has been in the program or that you feel as good about. But there's guys like him that are out there that can come in here and catch you 37, 40 balls for 450, 500 yards, something like that.
Right. Yeah, I think it's pretty spot on. I mean, to me, this is, again, if they did the exact same thing or had a similar role, or Noah Brown, like maybe a better case would be in Cincinnati, right? Where, again, I'm not rooting for this, but let's say Jamar Chase goes down with an injury. T. Higgins would be a number one for a lot of teams. He's there too, but he's pretty damn good and could probably go for 1,200 yards and eat up a lot of the targets, not do what Jamar Chase does, because there's another guy, one probably in Justin Jefferson, who could do those same kind of results. Maybe CeeDee Lamb in a good year. But Higgins would fill in. So maybe that's more of the one-to-one. But there's no other. This player will now ascend to eat up the lion's share of targets. Nobody else is 100-target worthy on this offense, if that makes sense.
If I had to guess right now, as far as who will catch the second most balls behind Terry McLaurin in a world where everybody's healthy, I would still say Debo over Noah Brown.
I would too.
Even though I think Debo is going to end up lining up in the backfield and getting carries a lot. But I would say, and maybe it's lazy. Maybe I'm just basing everything off of how he was used in San Fran.
I don't think it's lazy at all. I think it's correct. I mean, that's why you don't acquire him to not do that. I mean, you're flipping him screens and bubbles and smokes and pop passes, and those are all catches.
But I don't mean predicting him to be second. I mean, what's lazy, I think, is the role I'm imagining for him is just you take off the 49ers jersey and you put on the Commanders jersey. Maybe they have a different plan. Maybe they like him a little more traditionally at wide receiver more often and in their screen game more often. But I think he will be heavily involved in a lot of the screen stuff that Kingsbury wants to do. And I think 50 catches is absolutely possible in a reality. When we saw him catch 75 balls 4 years ago, those days are over. Since then, 56, 60, 51 grabs. I think he's going to be in that 50 catch area. And other than McLaurin, there's nobody else on the team that you would say that about. Let's go to Bernie in Potomac Falls. What's up, Bernie? How are you?
Hey, gentlemen, I'm great.
Hey,
so I'll two things. One, I worry that, I'm thinking it's ACL and he's gone for the year, right? Now, I don't know if it was contact, not on contact, but better.
We lose Bernie. Bernie, hang tight. We'll get right back to you. Ben Standig of the Athletics joining us from out in Ashburn right now at practice. Ben, we appreciate you making yourself available for a couple of minutes here. I know you're busy. What can you tell us about the Noah Brown situation?
Yeah, I mean, obviously it's hard to know exactly what happened, but basically he made a catch over the middle. It was like a sort of a low throw, and he went down to the ground, secured it, no big deal. But you could tell in the way he hit that something happened. To what degree, who knows? He stays down for an extra 2, 3, 4 seconds. The training staff comes out. He does eventually get up and slowly walks off the field, but then they decide to cart him over to the building. And, like I said, it's hard to tell exactly what stood out a little bit was when he gets to the building with the cart kind of rolls over sort of like a little bump out there. And at that moment, he kind of let out a scream. We were all sort of standing right there. And we don't know if it's a scream out of frustration, if it's a scream out of the bump did something to him. I can't say for sure. But, yeah, the whole thing was, jarring. You've seen this before. Some guys, it seems like a disaster, and then it turns out to be nothing. And other times,
yeah, you've been out there before. I was saying this, where like a guy gets carted off. We're all talking about his season being over, and then he had a cramp. But now I'm not suggesting that happened this time. But generally, just assuming or guessing is probably the wrong way to go about it. How did you view Brown's role in the offense and like his import to what they're going to do? Assuming he may miss time or not, but like, what do you view him as right now? The way that they have things lined up.
Yeah, I was literally yesterday discussing this. That like I feel like he's like the underrated or the overlooked part of the offense. So he was, a pretty big element for them last year with his size, the ability to make plays down the field, draw pass interference penalties, and when he got hurt, they didn't have anybody with that kind of size. Obviously, guys like Zacchaeus and De'Ami Brown filled in, but I think that element remains the same, right? I mean, Deebo Samuel, sort of your slot guy, Terry. whenever he arrives, we know what he is, but he's not like the big, red zone size kind of a guy. So, yeah, I think he has a pretty significant role, but this is the rub, unfortunately for him in his career, is the injuries. Obviously, like you said, can't speculate here. I don't know what to make of this, but you always have to factor in with him the injuries. That's what's plagued him throughout his career, and obviously we saw last year. Last year may have been a little bit of a fluke injury in terms of it was an internal injury, not like a knee or something. But unfortunately, these things happened seemingly to him, and you had to consider that. But hopefully he's all right, and hopefully he'll be ready. If not, in the next couple. Well, obviously they're off after this week. They have a long break, but hopefully he's ready by training camp or soon thereafter.
Kind of piggybacking off that, if he's not, again, we don't know, but if he's not, how do those targets get divvied up? How does the role get divvied up? Just sort of, who could sort of fill that void among their current group, and might they look externally?
Yeah, I mean, Michael Gallup is the guy they brought in, ex-Cowboy who, has he's not as big as Noah Brown, but he's got some of the sort of physical play. Unfortunately, injuries have wrecked his career the last few years. He hasn't even actually been practicing the last few sessions, dealing with a little bit of an injury. So there's that. You've got KJ Osborne, who, look, he didn't do really much of anything once he joined the team last year, but he has been a pretty productive receiver. So I think those are two guys you could look at. But, should, in the worst case scenario, again, just I don't know, but in the worst case scenario, I would almost think you look outside and see who's still around. I don't want to, I off the top of my head, I know like Amari Cooper's out there. Again, I'm not saying anything.
Not exciting anybody, yeah.
Right.
Yeah, but I'm just saying, but I think you probably would have to look outside because, again, specifically for what it is that he can do, that they just don't really have that guy unless somebody emerges that we just have no sense about right now.
So, Ben, we'll let you out on this. Appreciate a couple of minutes here. So just to clarify, he got to the sideline limping or helped off, or he just got carted off from where he went down?
No, he walked to the sideline like super gingerly, and then I guess after they looked at him for a moment or two, they put him on the cart and brought him up. Yeah, I mean, as you know from the landscape, but the field is below the building, so you have to instead of walking uphill in any capacity, they went with the cart. So hopefully it was just nothing more than that. But like I said, he either seemed to be a bit frustrated, either because of the injury or he got hurt more, or I don't know what. But hopefully it's not a big deal. But we'll see. My guess is DQ is not going to tell us too much tomorrow. They'll just wait until training camp. But we'll see.
Thank you very much. There's Ben Standig. Check out his work in The Athletic. Kind enough to hop on with us here on Grant and Danny from out in Ashburn. That was actually a really good point he made, and it should be passed along because it's one of those things you don't think about. But for people that haven't spent a lot of time out at that facility, there's really no way to get back into the building from the practice fields without climbing uphill for an extended period. So if any kind of injury, they're probably more likely to throw you on a cart. Whereas there's plenty of places where it's pretty level or you're right there and you can just go into the blue tent or whatever, where maybe that's not as necessary. I'm not saying it's not serious. I don't know. But for, sprained ankle or anything, right?
They're probably carting you just because that walk stinks.
I bet you the cart is used more from anything that happens on the fields there because otherwise you're hoofing it a little bit. Like you're climbing.
No, that's a good point. Yeah. The part that the detail that Ben can provide that no one else has to this point is it's when they went over the bump, whatever that is, that moment. And you don't know if it's frustration or if it's just ill-timed or if it was because of something hurt that bad. But that's all happened to us, right? Where you get into you're hurt and you get into a different position. And then like the toe that you just stubbed, you brush it against something, or, you're trying to get in your car after you got injured or whatever it is. And it hurts all over again. That's kind of what it sounds like. Again, don't want to speculate, but God, it stinks.